Hi everyone, I'm Laura Gale Locke. The City of Wichita is showing its support for veterans this month by supporting the Central Prairie Honor Flights program. We are very fortunate to have three colonels here in the studio with us today. On our end there is Cletus Stewart, then we have Charles Chauncey and Herb Duncan. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cletus, why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your service?
Well, I was inducted into the service in 1943 at 19 years old. I took my basic training in Texas, down around right up against the Gulf of New Mexico, and trained there for a year and went to Pensacola, Florida for part of it. Come back, got on a train. After we was trained, went to Camp Shanks, New York, and sailed for overseas on the Queen Elizabeth, largest ship afloat at the time. And 5 days, and we was in Glasgow, Scotland, and from there we took a train and further into Glasgow and then on into England. We were in England then for staging period, and from there we went up the English Channel to on ship, and at Normandy. I wasn't the first group in, I was the second wave to go in at Normandy,
So
France.
you were in World War II?
World War II. And then we fought all the way back up into France, Holland, and we didn't do any fighting in England, but there had been fighting in England. And then we went on through Belgium and into Germany.
And which branch did you serve in?
So I was in the Army, the 555 and Aircraft Battalion.
That is wonderful.
We protected from the air, the planes from the air, yeah. And that included the infantry and the big guns behind us.
You were busy.
We were busy, yes.
Charles, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, excuse me. I enlisted in the Army Air Corps in December of '42 and went into service then in January '43. Went through the Army Air Corps pilot training command, and basically I was out in California. The training that I wound up in was multi-engine, and after I graduated and got my wings in April of '44, I went into B-17 training, and when I completed that, I figured I was headed for European theater, but fortunately I happened to be in the top 10% of my class, and we were put over into the B-29 program. And of course the B-29 was a new aircraft, and actually was the queen of the air. It was the largest bomber that would in World War II, and had a lot of nice features to it, of being pressurized and had remote control, computer operated gun sights, and so it had a lot of very distinguished situations for us. And but after completing my B-17 training, we picked, our B-29 training at McCook, Nebraska, where our 9th Bomb Group was formed. We picked our B-29, which happened to be the 704th that came off the Wichita line here at Harrington, Kansas, and our crew flew it over to Tinian in the Marianas Islands. Guam, Tinian, and Saipan were where the B-29 bases were. From there I had 35 missions. Our crew had 35 missions, with 22 of them being night single ship missions. And we completed our missions in latter part of July of '44, and were able to come back to the States on the C-54 transport that the atomic bomb group was using to ferry their stuff over. So when they went back to the States, they were empty. So that was great for us. We left there on the 3rd of August and got back the 4th of August. They dropped the first atomic bomb on the 6th of August, and second one the 9th of August. I got married to my high school sweetheart on the 14th of August, and the war was over on the 16th of August, so I had to report back out to Santa Ana, California, where I chose not to continue in my service and return home.
Sounds like it all kind of timed out just right.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Herb, what about you?
Yes, 1958, graduated from East High School, and that summer we all, I'll never forget this, we marched from East High School, about 20 of us, marched down to the Naval Recruiting Station here in Wichita and enlisted. And let me tell you, my eyes got open to the big world out there because I lived a sheltered life. We went on the train up to Kansas City. They shipped us out to San Diego, California for boot training, and got attached to the Marine group in Camp Pendleton for a while. Then was sent to various schools in the United States. My vocation was naval aviation. I was supposed to be a sheet metal mechanic, but never touched an airplane till later on in my service. I got attached to a CV battalion in Pensacola, Florida, Whiting Field, and once that gets on your dossier, when you go somewhere else, they look at that. Even though I was naval aviation, these are your talents, and this is where you're going to go. The last part of my service was spent at the QB Point Naval Air Station in the Philippines, and our mission there was to do support for the Vietnam pilots, air sea rescue from Vietnam to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines and other islands around other places. We had the occasion at the particular point in time we were fighting the communists there, and we had occasion to be confronted with the communist hucks that would come in on dugout canoes and this kind of thing, and I have just a small inkling of what combat must have been like, and it is truly an honor for me to sit here today in the presence of these two gentlemen right here, these men of World War II, and the greatest generation are why I am with the honor flight. And I'm also, when I got out, I came back home to Wichita, got married to my sweetheart, and as time went on, my passion for flying and for World War II relations, I joined the Commemorative Air Force, and we restore and fly World War II aircraft. I'm the wing leader of the Commemorative Air Force here in Wichita. We fly 2 World War II airplanes, the PT-23, Fairchild PT-23, and a twin-engine Cessna Bobcat that was actually made on the production line at Cessna during the war.
How wonderful. For anybody who maybe isn't familiar with Central Prairie Honor Flights, tell us a little bit more about what you guys do and how you're helping veterans.
Honor Flight is to fly veterans to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials that were built in their honor. Our first objective is to fly the World War II veterans, and the next up will be the Korean veterans, and then in turn the Vietnam, and so on and so forth. At present time, our focus is to raise funds and fly World War II veterans to visit their memorial in Washington, D.C. At present, I believe our total is approximately nationwide. We've flown over 65,000 World War II veterans to visit the memorial. This month at Mid-Continent Airport, the first week of October, we flew over 200 World War II veterans on honor flight, 2 flights back to back. And it cost $650 per man to fly on honor flight. and we, like I say, we do fundraisings periodically to try to fill the money bucket. And right now, our money bucket's a little on the low side, and we are going to have a Salute to Veterans event November the 12th at Jabara Airport.
So what are you guys going to do at this event?
The event is going to be in honor of military personnel, because these men and women served our country, defended our flag, and our freedoms that we enjoy today. As I mentioned before, thousands of men and women died on the beaches of Normandy, Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal. I could go on and on and on about those things. That's something that folks in Wichita need to remember when they see that American flag. That American flag, when it's waving in the Kansas breeze, represents freedom that we enjoy today under the price that was paid for these men and women, especially of World War II.
Such a good point, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that would love to support your organization. So if they want to attend this fundraiser, what all does it consist of? Will you have maybe a dinner or a dance, or what could they expect?
Okay, the evening is going to be November the 12th from 5 to approximately 8:30. The evening's entertainment is going to be a 1940s style jitterbug contest. We have some professional dance instructors that are volunteering their time to come out between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock before the event to give free dance lessons if people want to learn how to do those kinds of things. And it seems like every time I've talked to anyone about jitterbug, I always get a smile on their face, and especially these men and women of World War II, because that's what they did when they were 18, 19 years old in service. We're going to have a banquet type dinner for the folks out there. The ticket price will help us raise funds to help fly these men and women back.
Charles and Cletus, maybe you could talk to me a little bit about how much it means to veterans to be able to go to Washington, D.C. and see these memorials. How much does that mean to you guys?
That meant everything in the world to me to get to go. My son-in-law's wife, my daughter, Linda Weir, went with me. And I don't walk good, but the flight provided wheelchairs for anybody that wanted them, and I was one of them. And it was the flight people was wonderful. They provided us with water and anything they could assist us with, and Arby's box lunches. We had 4 of them. And somebody says, well, you didn't go to a restaurant? Well, no, didn't go to a restaurant because you can't get that many people in and out of a restaurant without losing time. Mm-hmm. And everybody understood that. But the Arby's sandwiches are good.
Yes, they are.
So, and the people that assisted on the flight, too, they were very good. Mm-hmm. And 2 guys from the church that I go to, Central Community Church, the one guy didn't have nobody to assist him for a little bit, but a lady was there with her brother and her father, and she just volunteered to take care of him, and she pushed him all over up there.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I would like to make one comment. I would like to thank the city of Wichita and the Wichita Airport Authority for accommodating us this year. They went out of their way to help us get through the processing of getting through the TSA scanning and the security and things of this nature. I cannot say enough about how kind and courteous and patient that those folks at Mid-Continent Airport were in helping us with these folks. And by the same token, this could not have happened. It could not have happened without the help and aid of the local Legion Riders, the men and women who who ride the motorcycles with the big American flags on the back of their motorcycles. I got to take my hat off to them. We were out there at 4:30 in the morning processing these men and women to get them on the flight that was to depart I think around 7 o'clock. But the city of Wichita sure stepped up to the plate on this one. They really did. And my hat's off to them, and we want to thank them very, very much for helping us with Honor Flight, because I believe it was 2 flights before this, we literally shut down Mid-Continent Airport. We had so many Wichita people turn out to Honor Flight, we call it the Hero's Welcome. When the flights come back, you probably see some of the news video where the plane taxis in, and you'll see 2 large firefighting trucks with water streams that crested over the airplane. The plane taxis through this. It's a salute to the men and women that are on that airplane. And when they get off the airplane and come down the ramp through security, there are thousands of people clapping and cheering and whistling and signs saying, "Welcome home, Grandpa." And the kids are hugging Grandpa, and they run up. You'll see these things on the video from the television networks that we have here in Wichita. They did a super job covering this and sharing that emotion that these men and women, when they come back, and they'll have to describe what it feels like on their side of the
Well, I was a little bit different situation here. My wife and I have been back there to the memorial, I'm going to say 4 or 5 times. So rather than take someone's place that hasn't been there, I would like to go someday just for the camaraderie of it, but I want someone that's never been there before to be on the flight. And matter of fact, Mary and I were just there in September, and of course that's always a great thing to see. And I'm so happy about the honor flight and all the work that Herb and his people are doing. We just need to get every one of the World War II guys to go with that can go, and I just hope that we can keep the money rolling in to pay their ways and keep these flights going.
I would like to add one thing to what he's saying, that we have approximately 900 to 1,000 left on the waiting list, and we're in financial times right now, but I'd like for everyone out there to consider one thing. If everyone in the state of Kansas were to donate $1, we could send every Kansas World War II veteran on honor flight in 2012. And that would be an accomplishment. Yep. And it's possible, just $1. And people can go to centralprairiehonorflights.org and make a donation of $1 or more. It would be greatly appreciated to help us accomplish our mission of honoring and remembering these men and women of World War II.
Maybe you guys, and Charles, maybe you could talk about this a little bit more, but what does it mean to actually be standing there at the memorials? How much does that mean to you?
Well, it's a great feeling, and actually I was there Memorial Day after it was dedicated, and it was so great to see all of these veterans there, and people would actually come over to me and say, "Would you come over and meet my dad? He was over there," and it was one of those things wherein that everybody saluted everybody. I mean, even the large parade that they had, you actually made eye contact with the people up on the floats, and they salute you and you could salute them back, you know what I mean? It was a wonderful thing. And now, since I've been there, generally speaking, there's not that many people there, but the feeling's still the same. It's just a great memorial, and I hope that we can get more guys there.
How many people have you taken so far?
That I couldn't tell you. I will have to give you a little information. Honor Flight, Central Prairie Honor Flight's headquarters is in Great Bend, and it's long distance. So this last month, we're about 3 or 4 weeks old now. There's a group of Wichitans that have volunteered to organize ourselves to help accommodate Honor Flight here in Wichita. We're going to do our fundraising when these men and women from Kansas come to Wichita to depart at Mid-Continent Airport. We're going to assist them with motels, getting around if they have medical problems. We're here to help and serve them. We're boots on the ground here in Wichita. And I couldn't tell you how many flights. Well, I'll give you an example. The last flight you were on, I think it was flight 17, okay? And normally a flight is approximately 166 people. So doing the math, you can kind of calculate how that works.
You've already had some great success and you'd like to keep that going.
Yes, ma'am.
So if somebody would like to attend your event on November 12th, do they need to make a reservation, or how do they go about supporting the fundraising event?
We would suggest that folks would go to a website called salutetoveterans.us, and they could click on the tickets tab. They can either pay by check or by credit card. There's a phone number that you can call to get assistance if you have questions. And this way we can get the tickets out to them in time to attend the event November the 12th.
And how much are tickets?
The tickets are $50 per person, and that includes the banquet, the dinner, and the evening's entertainment, which is going to be a knockout, the jitterbug contest. I can't wait to see this.
I'd like to see some of you guys do the jitterbug again. I bet you could teach me a thing or two.
Well, at the end of the program, we are going to have what we call a Sweethearts Dance, and it's specifically for the men and women of World War II and their spouses to be on the dance floor. The spotlight will be on them, and it'll be a slower dance.
Thank you.
And then after they have a time on the dance floor, it'll be opened up to everyone, and then we'll close the program. The Kansas Air National Guard, they're volunteering to come out and post colors for us. They will be also doing the MIA POW ceremony, which is a very moving ceremony if you haven't seen it. We've also made contact with the local Veterans Administration, the VA hospital, and we're inviting all of the men and women that have come, that are returning from Afghanistan, that are amputees or have been wounded. They're going to be our guests that evening. This is Salute to Veterans. Anyone who has served in the military, or if you know of someone, if you have a relative that served in the military, we'd love to have you come out and support this. This is a fundraiser to help pay the way for another flight for Honor Flight.
What a wonderful tribute to all of them. Well, before I let you guys go, we've got to hear stories. I know you guys have had some amazing adventures.
Well, for me, little island of Tinian held the biggest bomber base in the world at that time. It had 4 8,500-foot runways and would accommodate over 250 B-29s. Saipan was just 3 miles away from us, and then also Guam was about another 100 miles on south of us. So they had longer missions than we did have. But our first missions were up around 30,000 feet, plus or minus, and this is, we had very, very poor results. And it was due to the jet stream that your weatherman speaks about every night. And this was the first knowledge of the jet stream, and lots of times their winds are up over 200, 250 miles an hour, and this would destroy the bomb pattern. So this was when General May dropped us from 30,000 feet down to 5,000 to 10,000 feet. That wasn't good, but they were night missions. So we didn't have night flying goggles like you have today. So when you left, you were on your own until you got back. And my average mission was around 14.8 hours. My longest mission was 17 hours and 20 minutes. But the first firebomb raid to Tokyo, which was the first one of a blitz of 4 missions, Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe, was the blitz missions, and those were run just as fast as they could run them. And but the first mission to Tokyo was considered the deadliest mission of any war to date. We burned 16 square miles of Tokyo, and demographics would indicate that they lost over 230,000 people in that one fire. And from there we went to Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe. Amongst those 4 cities, we burned 32 square miles of those cities. Most countries would have surrendered or capitulated, but since the Japanese didn't, why we actually burned 70 cities over there by war's end. And B-29 was used for mining missions, and I don't remember how many of those we were on, but we dropped 1,000 and 2,000 pound mines by parachute in the bays and harbors and channels. And so between us and the Navy submarines, we cut their shipping over 85%. And of course the atomic bomb aircraft were a little different than ours. They didn't have any blisters or turrets on them for weight to get away to get more speed to get away from the bomb blast. And the little boy atomic bomb was too long for the front bomb bay, so they were able to cabbage on some of the pilot's cabin up there to accommodate that. And they had some other real nice features, you know, that we were promised that we never got, the old Army game, you know. And but by and large, it was still a Boeing B-29 Super Fortress. And the missions were long. I would say we were over the sea about 98% of the time. So if you went down, you couldn't paddle home.
I bet not.
But the Navy subs actually picked up guys in Tokyo Bay. I mean, that's how great they were. And but Iwo Jima was taken as an emergency field for us because it was halfway in between our islands and Japan. And the Marines lost 6,000 men there, plus or minus. And I think there was something like 27,000 casualties taking that island. But it was a godsend for the B-29s because we had over 2,200 B-29s that landed there from being shot up, fuel, mechanical problems, and you multiply that times 11 and you got a batch of men.
Yeah.
And but it's all a dream anymore.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for telling us about it. It sounds like you did some tremendous work.
Thank you.
Cletus, I know you met a president, correct?
There's about 3 or 4 real important instances that I'd like to share. One is like when we left New York Harbor, the Queen Elizabeth was one of the ships that sailed solo because it was a fast ship. And the first day, maybe day and a half, we had overhead blimp looking out for us because there were submarines in the water. And we got out there about the 3rd or 4th day, and we were all in bed about 2:30 in the morning, come over the speaker, blew the sirens and everything, and said, everybody get out of bed, get dressed, put your life jackets on, and lay back down. Well, We did. Nothing happened, but the ship that night, what it did, it'd go 7 minutes straight ahead, 7 minutes to the left, and 7 minutes to the right, and that put it back on track. Then it'd go to the right 7 minutes, to the left 7 minutes, and then back 7 more, and that puts you back on track on the other side. So that way, the next morning, the officers called us in the mess room, and they said, "Now, you wondered what went on last night. We're going to tell you. We were being torpedoed, but we were fast enough that they couldn't zero in on us in 7 minutes. So we outdid them, and we made the safe trip."
How scary. I can't imagine. You probably didn't sleep so well when you put those life jackets on.
No, because you was ready. You didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't tell you no more. That was it. So then another time, after we got over in France, was an experience when we went to Normandy. The ship went over as far as it could without grounding, and it was still out in the water a lot. But they brought these amphibious boats and stuff to the ship. We went down over a rope ladder into them, and then they floated on rest of the way to shore. That way, we were out of the water at least. Now some didn't. The first wave that went in there, they were in a lot of water, and no way to dry them or nothing. And we were too. It rained when we were there, and you just didn't. If you got your boots wet and your feet wet, they were wet. That's the way it was. There's no way to dry them. Another incident was the Battle of the Bulge. I was in the Battle of the Bulge, captured, and didn't know it.
Really?
Yeah, our outfit didn't know it. Our officers knew it, but enlisted men didn't know it.
What happened?
But it was snowy. The ground was covered with snow, so they had dressed these soldiers in white sheets to blend in with the snow, and they infiltrated in and broke the line. And then a day or two they told us, "You didn't know it, but we were captured." But we didn't know. If they hadn't have done that, hard to tell them what had happened.
Well, that was clever. Good way to escape.
It was. It really was. And then another incident was when we was in Wichita, Germany. We sat there for a while, waiting for supplies to catch up with us, ammunition and everything. And then one evening, about 10:30 or 11 o'clock, they began to fire. All the guns began to fire, and they've gone over the Rhine River, shooting over, and wondering. We didn't know what was going on. Officers knew, but they did that, and every other bullet was a tracer, so it just looked like a string of fire out of many, many, many guns. The reason they did that, while they were doing that, the engineers come in and laid down a pontoon bridge. And about, I think it must have been about 6 o'clock, it was still dark, then we went across. Then we was on the other side of the river. And that was a sight when it got daylight. It tore up everything. Animals and all. It was everything. So then we just kept going on into Germany, further and further and further. And I was 195 consecutive days on the front line and never got a scratch. Never got a scratch. And I thank the Lord for that.
I was going to say, somebody was looking out for you.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Were you there when Patton came and
Yes.
broke through?
I should have probably brought that book. I have a book where he's standing on a tree stump, and we're all sitting there on the ground, and he's telling us what's going on, and what we're going to do, and when we were going to do it. I have that picture.
Did he actually wear those pearl-handled guns?
He had guns. Yeah, I'll have to look and see. I don't remember, but he did have, yeah. And Eisenhower and he both. We were in a convoy and they went around the convoy and took the lead, standing up, hanging onto the windshield in a Jeep. So they put themselves out there too. They really did.
Were you able to speak with the president, or did he address the troops?
No, never. He was in England earlier, you know, and the Big Four, they called them. And but I didn't know. We didn't get to. But the heartbreaking thing was, we was right in the middle of a war, and our captain come and told us, says, "Guys, I got something to tell you. Our president died last night." Well, that kind of give you a little funny feeling too, but that's why we have vice presidents.
Did you folks, excuse me, did you folks ever get to listen to the radio? Did you ever go hear Bob Hope or see him?
No. Not only when they came over afterwards. We heard a lot of propaganda. They had a group of ladies that they were good at it. They was on radio, and if you go into a bombed out place, there was a battery operated radio or something, you could hear them. And they said, "Oh, the Americans are failing, they're going down, we're going to win this war." They just tore us all to pieces, you know.
Really?
Yeah, to break your spirit, for one thing. But they didn't get it done.
That's right.
Tokyo Rose tried to do
Tokyo Rose, yeah, that was one of them.
Boy, she played some beautiful music.
Did she?
And I never could figure it out, because when we came in, when we landed over in Tinian, and a lot of the crews ahead of us, she actually welcomed them in by airplane commanders' names.
Really?
And how she got her information, I don't know, but we laughed about it, because we were told we were not to open up our orders until we were about 4 hours out of San Francisco, headed west, and there she had the information before we even.
Did you guys ever get homesick?
I don't think so. You were too busy.
The worst homesick I got was the first 4 days when we went to Leavenworth. I'd never been away from home before. I was 19, went up there for physicals and such, and was up there a couple of days or 3, and then they let us come home for about a week. Then we had to go back. But that was when I was homesick. I missed everybody, of course, you know.
Well, I remember going, when I first went in, we went to Pneumonia Gulch, which is just south of St. Louis, Jefferson Barracks, and it was in January, and the cadets ahead of us had to build their own barracks.
Oh.
So they were little 10-man size barracks, and you had screen door, and the windows were covered. It was just a flap, and you had one of those little cone-shaped stoves to keep you warm, and generally speaking, you'd stoke it up as much as you could at night. They'd go out, and by morning, while the mop would be frozen in the pan there. But you had to have a 102.5 degree temperature before you could get in to the hospital there. So guys that didn't have that much, they were kept them in bed and in their own barracks there, and I think basically they were taking sulfa and told to drink a lot of water, and but that was the worst situation that I was ever in here in the States. And, I guess you could almost feel like you were homeless.
Difficult conditions, I'm sure.
Yeah. But things got better. And but I'm happy for the Material Service, and we too, we never took a hit. in our 35 missions. And we flew over Nagoya one night on 3 engines. We should have been shot down, but we weren't. And our navigator actually could see a small arms fire that came up between the nacelles and the fuselage, and we had flak out there. We still never got hit, and that was, I guess, maybe every mission was lucky, I think, but that was one of our lucky ones. And we got honored to drop the 2 millionth ton of bombs for the Air Forces in July, and I think the first millionth ton that was dropped was by a B-17 over in Europe. And basically they were just 2 different wars. I mean, European was all over land and Pacific all over water. And so I don't think there's any way to compare situations, you know what I mean? Our planes were about 30 miles faster than what the B-17s and B-24s were, and so the Japanese couldn't run a ring around the rosy on us, and they only had one opportunity to hit you, and if they got through, then they'd climb back up and hit the next group, because you usually had many groups that were going on the same target. And but the firestorms were very, very severe. If there is such a thing as a number 10 thunderstorm, I would say the firestorms would be the same, but the only difference was there was no moisture in there, just so many updrafts and downdrafts, very severe. When you were in one, you had no control over the aircraft. You could not change the attitude of the aircraft, and then when you go from say a downdraft into an updraft, it was just like going through parachute. And we had a lot of B-29s that broke up in those firestorm raids. And but it took the Japanese a long time to get the message.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful we're not speaking Japanese today, or German, or Italian.
Herb, did you have any stories you wanted to share?
No.
That was a quick answer.
Mine would be incriminating. Well, like I said, I was in the Vietnam era. Okay, I never saw combat per se, but one of the scariest things that I can remember, QB Point Naval Air Station is on the big island of Luzon. It's Subic Bay. Now, most sailors and those that are familiar with that area know about Subic Bay. It's been there forever. It's a big naval station, and there's a carrier pier. And I was in the naval aviation. Our barracks was up on top of the mountain. And my brother, Lyndall Duncan, was in the Seabees in the before I enlisted. He was in the Korean War era, and his battalion went over. And you've heard Scripture talk about faith can move a mountain. The Navy Seabees did it. We took a mountain, cut it in half, pushed it out into the ocean, made a landing strip on it, and it was called QB Point Naval Air Station. And it's ironic because he helped build that airfield that I flew off of when it was my turn to go over. And I can remember one evening we'd just gone through chemical warfare, atomic warfare preparations. We're less than an hour's flight from Red China, and things were really getting heated. Vietnam was just starting up, and the bay, we had what we call a gee dunk. Well, in civilian terms, it's like a little restaurant, and it was sitting up on top of the mountain, and you could sit there and look out over the bay, and you could see the city of Olongapo that was a little farther across the bay. And it was a Saturday evening, about 9:30, And like I said, we just had all this training, and then all of a sudden, the sirens went off. And I'm sitting there, I'll never forget it as long as I live. I was having a bacon and tomato sandwich and a Coca-Cola, and looking out over the bay, and then all of a sudden you could see all the ships in the bay fire up their boilers, and they were headed out to sea. They left over half of their crew on shore on Liberty.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, all the lights started going out. And I can remember seeing newsreels of England during the Blitz when the Germans would fly over. They would start turning off the lights in the cities, and sections of towns, all the lights would go off so they couldn't see where the cities were. Well, there I was, sitting in a bird's eye view, looking out over all this stuff that's happening right before me, and all of a sudden I look out at Longapo, and all the lights started going off, just in the different sections of town. And all of a sudden, all the lights went off everywhere. All you could see was a silhouette of all the ships heading out to sea, I mean, they were blowing smoke. I mean, they were kicking in as high as they wanted to get out of there as fast as they could to the South China Sea. And like I said, they left over half the crew there on shore. And we all had to report to our duty stations. And there's a saying, I can't really repeat it on air, but it's like kissing your something other goodbye. You know, it's coming. Because when they drop an atomic bomb, and we were the prime target because of Subic Bay, the strategic implications that it had, and the Naval Air Station, which was right next to it, and Clark Air Force Base, which was pretty close to us also. They could take us all out with one bomb. And that would literally, it would be just like the Japanese doing the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor. That's exactly what it would have been like. And all of these emotions are running through my head, and I'm climbing in the old Jeep, and I had to go down to the flight line to see where we're supposed to be, report. And I keep remembering some of the newsreels of the attack of Pearl Harbor and the confusion and everybody trying to get to their duty stations and what they were supposed to do. That's what we were trying to do at the particular time. And that was one of the most, I shouldn't say scared, but I tell you what, the adrenaline was really pumping because you did not know what was going to happen in the next hour. Because we were, like I said, less than 1 hour's flight away from them. And I think some diplomacy came into play, and the Chinese backed down. And they were, trying to take Formosa and those kinds of things. Excuse me. But like I said, that's one of my most exciting, really exciting times that I had, except for the fact of the communist hucks coming in at night and trying to take us out with sniper fire.
Oh my.
Things like this. We had one fella, he got so homesick, one night he went out on guard, put his finger over a shotgun barrel, pulled the trigger, didn't shoot his finger off, excuse me, and just laid in his hand. I grabbed his hand, we took him up to sick bay, and they shipped him off to Corpus Christi, Texas to recuperate, and that's where he lived. He would send us, he'd send us postcards saying, boys, it sure is nice being home with all the round eyes, all the gals back here. Excuse me, we could have killed him.
Yeah, giving you guys a hard time.
Really?
We had a guy do that just inside of Germany. We hadn't been there but just maybe a week waiting on his supplies. He always said, I'm not going to the front line. I'm not going to go. And he didn't go. He blowed a hole in the top of his foot, claiming that he was cleaning his gun. They sent him back. Back to Missouri.
But you knew what was going on.
Eventually he went back there.
Well, I say every man has thousands of stories. And especially when I'm around these men of World War II, I could sit and listen to these men for hours. And it's just an honor to be in their presence.
Well, it's a good reminder for people to come out to your fundraiser so they can talk to all these wonderful veterans and hear all of these amazing stories.
strange stories.
Well, thank you so much for everything you guys have done for the country. We really are grateful and do appreciate it, and thank you for making time to be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of Local Loop. We'll leave you all the information you guys are going to need to attend the fundraiser coming up on November 12th.